Nah, Hello, DevOps friends. It's Friday again, which means it's time for another office hour. I'm Jochen, the Monospace mentor, and in my office hour, I answer questions from you, the viewers, from the audience. Questions mainly about DevOps and system administration, software engineering, career questions, stuff like that. In that area. And so if you have any questions that you'd like me to tackle, I'll be more than happy to do so. In order to collect questions in a way that is feasible for me, streaming to 3 different streaming platforms, namely Twitch, YouTube, and my own streaming host at live.monospacementor.com, I decided to use a Q&A platform to field your questions. So if you have a question, post it to mspc.sh/office. Our link is in the chat, and it's also on screen in the ticker above. So go there. You don't have to log in or anything. You can go there and enter your question, and it'll immediately pop up on my screen where I'll collect them. You can also upvote questions from others if you like them particularly, and I'll then pick them and try to answer them. That's how this works. We'll do that for about an hour. That's why it's called Office Hour. And then we'll conclude this stream. There is no live coding. There's nothing that I had to prepare. That's the nice thing about Office Hours for me, because the only work I have to do is try and come up with useful answers, and that I will do. And everything else is up to you. You are responsible for the programming now in the entertainment sense. And so I'll be sitting here and enjoying my coffee while you try and come up with interesting questions. Let's do it, right? Let me check if everything is in order. Yep, that looks good. And that looks good too. While we are waiting for questions to come in, I can tell you something from this morning that I enjoyed particularly. I have rediscovered that I started writing a computer simulation in Ruby with the goal to build a simple computer from logic gates written in software. So I started building Ruby classes for NAND gates, because NAND gates usually are what are the foundational building blocks for logic chips. Excuse me. And from there I went on to write an AND gate and an OR gate, an inverter, which is basically just a NAND gate with its 2 input signals short-circuited, and things like that. And this morning I tried to write a half adder, which is basically just an adding block that takes 2 bits and adds them. And that wasn't, of course, very hard, but then I started researching this a little bit, and found something that reminded me that I did actually, back in the day, did this during college when I studied computer science. We did these logic sessions where we actually built logic circuits out of logic gates and built the formula for that ourselves. So we had to write the Boolean algebra formulae that described a specific circuit that took some input signals and generated some output signals. And I had forgotten how this works. Mind you, I went to college 30 years ago, and so this was really, really interesting, refreshing my memory about how to do this, how to write a logic table, how to then come up with a logical expression, and then simplifying that logical expression using Boolean algebra down to the result then. So you knew, okay, I need an XOR gate here and an OR gate here and an AND gate here. And that was really, really fun. I actually used Claude a little bit to help me with simplifying an initial formula, because I didn't understand how the person whose blog post I was reading came up with the final result. And Claude actually helped me quite a bit in understanding the step-by-step progress or process of solving that Boolean expression. And then I started reading a little bit more about Boolean expressions in general. And yeah, many things came back to me actually, and this was really fun and nice trip down memory lane. And I'm looking forward to doing a little bit more work on my Ruby-based computer simulation. That might actually pop up on one of my future live coding streams as well. I one-shot the half adder programming. I did it in test-driven development, and so I wrote the test first for an adder, simply adding 2 bits, and then I wrote the code connecting. What did I use? I think 2 NAND gates and an inverter or something like that. Don't remember anymore. Let me check. The half adder, no, it uses 5 NAND gates in total, which have to be connected in some way. And that gives you an half adder block that only adds 2 bits. What it doesn't do, and why it's called half adder, is if you then use that half adder to add the least significant bits of 2 bytes, for example, you need then next add the next least significant bits, but take into account the carry bit that came from the previous adding operation. So a full adder needs to take 2 bits and a previous carry bit and add all 3 together to create the final result. And then you can simply put a row of full adders in a row to add 2 bytes together. And that's what's built into either an ALU, an arithmetic logic unit, or basically just a CPU in general. Nowadays, ALUs are not separate from the main processor anymore, as they were 30, 40 years ago. And yeah, that was really, really fun. I enjoyed doing this computer sciencey stuff, and I'm looking forward to doing more of it. But enough from me and more from you. Post your questions to mspc.sh/office hour so I can pick up your questions and get them on screen. Hey DJ, how you doing? Over on my own cast instance, just came by to say hi and that I love the logo design based on a VT100 style terminal. Yep. I mean, as you can see back there, I'm a huge fan of these machines of the 70s and early 80s, and I could not help but build my whole stream design based on green screen terminals and stuff like that. Really happy for you to join us here. If you have any questions, post them. mspc.sh/office hour. And here we have a question. Have you tried the Unify flexible Ethernet cables? They're so cool. You mean these? I'm not sure if those are the... Yeah, they're very sloppy, not sloppy, but floppy. And yeah, they're bendable like that. That's really nice. So the short answer is yes, I have tried them and I will try them for PubMox, which is going to be the public Proxmox server for my community called the Server Room. If you're not familiar with the Server Room, I've built a community for DevOps practitioners where we help each other grow. It's mostly a membership community for paid members, but just recently I opened it up for everyone. So if you'd like to support me, please get a paid subscription. But if you want to simply join us and ask questions on our forum and get in touch with us and learn what's new in our community with community events and things like that, then you can also join for free. I'm happy for everyone who joins us and makes it an even more friendly and inclusive community. And PubMox is going to be a Proxmox server that I'm going to set up. The server chassis is at the moment shipping from China, from GMK Tech, and I'll also have to order some RAM and a few M2 SSDs, and then we'll have a Proxmox server that we can use together. So everyone in the community at a gold membership level, of course, I need to somehow make the cost of running that server a little bit sustainable at least. Everyone at the gold membership level will have free access to the PubMox server. You can set up your own VMs, maybe try and set up your own Kubernetes cluster or do other things like that. Whatever comes to your mind where you could use one or a few VMs that you can quickly spin up without any additional cost, the PubMox server is exactly for that. And I've also got myself a Unify switch with a 2.5 gigabit switch, a small one that I'll use to connect the server to my home network, and eventually we might actually extend the lab infrastructure even more, and I think 2.5 gigabit is a nice way to start things off when we're starting networking. ExitJeet, who probably asked the question on the board, says, yes, I'm moving all of my network to those. They aren't dragging my switch off the desk anymore. Yeah. Just a second. Yeah, Unify builds really nice things, and I really enjoy running a fully Unify-based network here in my office and the whole house. I also have a Unify LTE expander, so if my main internet connection goes down, I still have internet access via the LTE network. And the Unify Dream Machine down in the living room takes care of all these things automatically. And it'll also manage the VLAN, for example, that I'm going to use for the community lab infrastructure. Now, Exegete showed you how it's done. Go to mspc.sh/office hour and post your questions there, and I'm looking forward to what you are going to come up with. In the meantime, let me show you how the Ruby computer that I mentioned earlier looks like. So here you can see on the left, that's, for example, the half adder that I was talking about. The half adder needs, of course, 2 bits as input, the input node A and the input node B. And then it'll output the sum of these bits in with the output node S, and it'll also deliver a carry bit that goes to output node C. And as I said, we need 5 NAND gates that I instantiate here and add as a component of this half adder. And of course, the NAND gate itself is another component. And then we'll just have to wire things up, and I do that by connecting nodes. The node A, our input node, gets connected to node A on the NAND gate 1, as well as the NAND gate 3. And then node B goes to NAND 1 as well on its B input, and to NAND gate 4. Then we have to connect NAND 1 with 3 and 4, NAND 3 and 4 with NAND 5, and the result of NAND 5 finally is the sum that we needed. And then we need to take care of the carry bit as well. And the carry bit is basically simply the OR operation between the original no, it's not. We connect NAND 1, the C. Yes, of course. That's quite easy to explain, because when do we have a carry bit? When NAND 1 delivers a 1. No, if it delivers, if both inputs basically are 1, then NAND 2 will set the carry bit. And and like this, I can basically build all kinds of logic gates and logic circuits in code. For example, if we take a look at the inverter, that's a very easy thing. You simply take one NAND gate and then you wire its inputs together. NAND A and NAND B get wired together, and then I can simply connect my component, the inverter input, to the node A of the NAND, and then the result will be at the end of the NAND gate in its node C, and that will get wired to our output node B. So we simply take the input bit, take it twice, do a NAND operation which will AND the 2 identical values, which is going to be either 0 or 1. And then the NAND, of course, inverts that because it's a AND, a negating AND, and that way we've built an inverter from a NAND gate. And like that, basically everything usually is built out of NAND gate. I think because those NAND gates are the easiest to build from even smaller components, namely transistors. And so I did the same. I'm using the NAND gate as my basic building block, and from there I just assemble and assemble and assemble. this is really, really fun. Not sure if you share that enjoyment. Maybe you think it's weird, but doing these things is really fun for me. So we have more questions while I was babbling about. We got a new question, actually 2 new questions. The first one is, will you buy a Framework desktop? I would love to, because I really love the idea behind Framework, and the desktop seems to be a really, really nice box in terms of performance, in terms of design. It ticks all my boxes, actually. However, I already have more compute power here in my office than I'll ever need. I have a very high-end workstation with a Ryzen 9, 96 gigabytes of RAM that I'll never probably use to the max. Most of the work in that machine is done by the GPU, and everything else isn't really relevant. Then I have my own home lab server, which is another i7 machine with lots of threads and 128 gigabytes of RAM. So I'll probably never fill that up with VMs myself. That machine runs all my house internal services like Home Assistant and Pi-hole and all that stuff. And now I'm going to get the PubMox server as well, that I use together with the server room, our DevOps community. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever need more compute power than I already have. And that's why I will probably never buy a Framework desktop myself. And just seeing how much the Dell Precision workstation that I bought as my own home lab server, used off eBay, still can do, buying new seems rather wasteful, actually. So I guess I would rather buy something used again and not worry about maxing that out, because my use cases just aren't there to max out even a machine from, say, 2020 or something. And you can get those pretty cheaply now, because of course all the companies that had been leasing them are now getting newer machines. And so in terms of sustainability, I think it's also much easier to, or much better to reuse than to even buy something reusable or repairable as a Framework machine. Same goes for the laptops as well. I see myself rather buying a used laptop that's 4 or 5 years old. That's enough compute power when I'm out and about. And so there won't be a Framework laptop in my future either, I think. And the other question that came in, what's your take on Kamal? Have you seen DHA's recent push to local CI? I mean, David pushes towards everything local, doesn't he? No, I haven't followed his recent advances, because, yeah, to be honest, DHH really turns me off. Yeah, just to be clear, turns me really, really off. And so I'm not aware of that. Local CI, meaning running your CI locally, and how do you do local CI in a team setting then? I'd be curious. My take on Kamal is it's really interesting, and one of the things that I have on my someday maybe list, no, rather my someday eventually list, is moving our customer dashboard off Heroku to our own infrastructure. And I see myself using Kamal for that deployment, because we have only one Rails application, namely the customer dashboard. So there's no use in building something more sophisticated just being able to do a Kamal deploy should be enough. And so I'm really interested in the technology. I'd be curious what local CI actually means in that context. Maybe you can elaborate in chat. And since I mentioned eBay, any tips for not getting scammed on eBay? No. I could use tips like that myself, if I'm honest, because I tend to make decisions in that regard that aren't fully thought through. Sometimes I just want to get something and it looks interesting and I want to have it and I go for it. And I also have a tendency to not read descriptions properly, because I want, for just an example from recently, I wanted to get a replacement keyboard for my son's ThinkPad laptop, because neither of the two that I already have are working, and I want to, of course, find out, did I destroy something in the laptop so no keyboard is going to work, or is it just actually something with both of the keyboards? I got the second one of AliExpress, so I'm not 100% confident that it's really okay. And so I wanted to, so I ordered another keyboard off eBay, and then it came, and the cable was on the wrong side. And then I realized, yeah, it's for a ThinkPad 480S and not for a ThinkPad 480 without the S. And yeah, now I have a keyboard that I can't even use. And yeah, if you have any tips how to prevent getting scammed on eBay or other platforms like this, send them my way. I really can use them. Exegete wrote, there is a 7-inch APC 19-inch rack for $45. Got close to buying it, can't justify that much space. 7 inches isn't too high, is it? It's... oh, 7 foot. Okay, 7 foot, that's... basically a half height rack, right? Something like 20 units. I have no idea how your imperial units work, but yeah, I mean, a half height rack is nice. And I mean, what would go for it is you can also put stuff on top of it. Maybe turn it into a second desk or something like that. Just a thought. But yeah, I guess with technology getting smaller and smaller, and me, for example, buying one of these mini PCs as our PubMox server, I can't see myself filling a... oh, it's 2.5 meters, so 7, of course, 6 foot is already a very tall, quite a tall human. So that's a full 42U rack for $45. That's a steal. Yeah, definitely. And from APC of anything, that's amazing. That's an amazing deal. But yeah, what do you do with 42 units if you're not TechnoTim? Because yeah, you'd have to buy 19-inch cases or buy 19-inch shelf stuff and things like that. So yeah, that's something if you seriously want to build a home data center and also have a lot of money to sink into there. Other than that, I mean, I am considering taking the books out of there and put the PubMox server in there, maybe something else, and the space still wouldn't be full. And so yeah, I can't see myself getting a full height 19-inch rack myself. 10 years ago, I would have immediately gone for that rack, of course. You could turn it around. You could turn it around and put bookshelves to use the remaining space. What do you mean $45 is basically highway robbery? That sounds like the opposite of what I think it is. I mean, if you buy that directly from APC, what that's going to cost? Yeah, that way, yeah. It's basically theft. And just leaving $45 out of pity. And Hannelish is joining us. Good morning to you. Office hour going nicely, getting good questions. I'm really in a fun mood. I did some Boolean arithmetic earlier today, and then turned that into Ruby code. And so yeah, been having fun so far. And yeah, folks, keep the questions coming. mspc.sh/office hour is where you can post your questions. And yeah. Actually, it says it's not a local uni, so taxes paid the original price. Yeah, of course, they did. And yeah, now I can see. I mean, it's often surprising for how little money these things go for. But then, yeah, if you look into accounting practices, once that stuff is written off, it's really not worth anything more to the company. And trying to get a good price would require you to basically start doing retail. And if you're a hiring company or something like that, you don't want to get into that, and all the accounting headaches that probably go with that. So you'll just try and get rid of that stuff as cheaply as possible. 1200 new from APC, says Exegete. Yeah, not surprised. I mean, you could actually simply get it for $45 and resell it yourself. Hannelicious asks in chat instead of the board, but I'll let that slide for once. Do you think Dockerizing apps is the way to go these days, specifically for Python Django apps? Or is there a benefit to doing more traditional deployment where you've got a server somewhere you deploy the code directly to? Both are valid. Deploying your application to a server, to a VPS where you've prepared the runtime environment that you need, maybe run a database or something in the background, and then simply deploy your application code there, as basically we did in the Ruby land with Capistrano. That's perfectly fine still. However, I myself would use the combination of both. I would basically set up a server and mainly set up Docker or Podman in that case, and then run my application as container images, or deploy them as container images, because that's so easy and simple. And it's yeah, maintenance is so much easier because you can always check which version of the image you are running, and there are existing mechanisms to build a container image, to push it to a registry, and then for your VPS to pull it down again and run it. And so I would definitely post the Porque no los dos meme here, and say, yeah, run your own server. If you don't need to have high redundancy and high availability, run your own little server, and build some kind of infrastructure, software infrastructure to make deployment easy. For example, using the aforementioned Kamal or something similar for Python applications. So yeah, use Docker and use your own server, because of course you could then go and deploy your Docker image anywhere on AWS or somewhere else. But the cost factor there is not really good value for money, I think. And if you're just a small team of people who can split the effort between them, I'd go and get a VPS that has enough RAM, and they'll all have SSDs anyway, so you don't need to worry about storage performance anyway, and then deploy your application there. That should be perfectly all right. And if you need any help with that, I'll be more than happy to do so, and I'm pretty sure everyone else in our community will be as well. So maybe consider joining the server room. It's only recent that I made it available for free. If you want to support me and my work, you can of course still get a paid membership, and I'd appreciate it a lot. But you can also join for free and ask your deployment questions on our forum or on our Discord server. Fullesnabel joining us midstream. Oh, it's not midstream, but yeah, we're still going. Hello, how you doing? And we have another question on the board. Do you have an opinion on serverless compute platforms like Cloudflare, Fastly, or Dino Deploy? Yeah, they are all pretty nice. Even Bunny CDN, which I'm using for my website, has added those serverless features just recently. I still remember getting an email last week or so. They're nice for a very specific kind of application. And since I'm not that much into web development, I can't give you any opinion that's based on experience here. But it's an interesting concept that basically applies the CDN approach with having edge nodes that are very near to the user, and other than a CDN, not just delivering static artifacts, but also running the actual server code near the user. I'm more of a monolith aficionado in that I'm still pretty much focused on backend server logic and keeping my front end as lean as possible. And by lean as possible, I mean basically sending server rendered HTML and alongside with CSS and JavaScript, if necessary. So from an architecture standpoint, it's pretty interesting. And there are specific applications that definitely benefit from it also on the financial side, because you can quickly spin up a application process, render the result, and then throw it away again. So everything is very ephemeral, and that way it doesn't cost you continuous operation of a backend server. On the other hand, of course, the architecture of your application becomes more distributed but that way, and that of course then means higher complexity, which comes with all its own downsides. So yeah, it's of course always a trade-off. If you need something that your users benefit from when it gets executed directly, basically on their doorstep, this makes sense. I wouldn't apply it without thinking to any problem I encounter. I think it's for a very specific set of problems. Oh boy, there's a loaded question if there ever was one. What is your favorite IDE/editor? Do you think there is a benefit to learning something like Vim over using something like VS Code? My favorite editor is, as you probably saw earlier, NeoVim. But it wasn't always that way. You would think that me coming from a system administration background, I started Linux administration in 1993, I would have had Vim down to a T, but I didn't actually. I learned some basic Vim because I knew that it would be on any server I would encounter. But apart from the absolutely most foundational basics like entering input mode, getting out of input mode, and then of course getting out of the editor as well, I didn't learn anything. It seems too complicated and outdated, just like Ed, for example. Did I ever use Ed? No, I didn't. But I did use a line-based editor in college. The professor actually made us program in, oh dear, I don't remember the programming language anymore, but it was on an IBM 4301 mainframe. And it did have terminals. We didn't use paper teletypes, but all that was available was a line editor. And yeah, I can see why I actually did forget all the details of that torture. But back to favorite editor. I actually used text-based or graphical editors most of the new millennium. At the beginning, in the early 2000s, I got in the Apple ecosystem, and that's when I discovered TextMate and later Sublime Text, things like that. And for a short while, I also used VS Code, I think. But at one point, I started learning a bit more about the advantages of Vim and the advantages of actually mastering it with all its logic and key bindings and things like that. And when I started doing that, I started to appreciate the idea behind Vim as a modal editor. And as Exegete says, do not underestimate the value of using Vim key bindings in your favorite editor as a stopgap. Vim mode in JetBrains is really good. Vim in VS Code /cursor is possible, at least. And yes, so I think it's not the editor itself that is so enticing to people. It's its way of thinking with all the motions and then motions applied to actions and stuff like that. And once you grasp that, you get very productive. Navigating code is easier, and it's all very logical. Of course, RubyMine, for example, has its own key bindings to surround a word with quotes, for example, or with brackets or anything like that. But I'd have to learn that from scratch, and it'll just be something that the RubyMine developers thought out. And so it might not be very mnemonic or easy to remember. With Vim, however, it's all very logical and everything builds upon each other. And that's what I'm enjoying. And of course, with the plethora of plugins that are available for Vim and NeoVim, you can do a lot of stuff up to integrating LLMs and all these things. So you're not held back by the fact that something like Vim is decades old. It's basically the experience of decades, but applied to development productivity problems of today, and I really like that. Next it says I swap between RubyMine, Cursor and NeoVim easily because I'm using the Vim key bindings everywhere. Yep, makes sense. First Nabel says I heard Windsurf is the newest and coolest AI IDE. Is it Windsurf or is it just Surf? Yeah, I read the name, but I'm not too interested in those AI specific applications, AI specific terminals, AI specific editors much. I do have Copilot integration in NeoVim simply because it's I can use it for free with my GitHub account, and it makes typing a little bit easier, but other than that, I don't need AI integration in my day-to-day tools yet. All right, it's 3 o'clock and my coffee is empty, so we'll soon round off this office hour. I still have a glass of passion fruit orange smoothie, so there's a little bit more time that we can use. And just to answer the current question finally, do you think there's a benefit to learning something like Vim over using something like VS Code? There's definitely a benefit of learning how Vim works and why people are so passionate about it, because that's really valuable. And as Exegete said, in the end, you might even be able to apply that to other IDEs like VS Code too, because they support these Vim key bindings on top of all the feature set that they already come with. So I definitely would recommend everyone to look into Vim and try to get at least the basics down, so you have proper background to decide if it's something for you, if it's something to become your daily driver or not. And maybe you would still like to use something like RubyMine because of the very good language integration and refactoring tools and things like that, but still use Vim key bindings for code navigation. And so again, it's a porque no los dos meme application here. Okay, let's try this smoothie. Very rich in vitamins. So, I guess let's announce it for the last time. This is my office hour. You ask, I answer. Post your questions to mspc.sh/officehour. And let's see what you're going to come up with. And once I've downed that glass, I'll wrap things up. Only Element joining us, asking, good day, I have a question regarding container scanning. So I've implemented Trivia in our GitLab and see a lot of vulnerable base images for our apps, Alpine, Nginx, etc. How can I take action and solve these CVEs? it's hard to give a specific answer to a more general question like that. But I guess, yeah, you'd have to look into the actual CVEs that your scanner came up with and check if they apply or not. I mean, it's definitely a good step to start with container scanning in the first place. And it might be that your own containers simply are using outdated versions of these container images, but because the base images for Alpine and Nginx definitely shouldn't be vulnerable. At least the current ones shouldn't be. But of course, if you built a container 2 years ago from the then latest Nginx base image, that image might since have been discovered as to having vulnerabilities and being superseded by an updated version. And in that case, of course, it is advisable to rebuild your containers using an up-to-date base image. So that might actually resolve most of the issues that you are seeing, that maybe your containers just are using outdated base images. And there are practices that make this easier to track, especially probably not using the :latest tag, because that doesn't really tell you when it was last installed. So using actual SHA hashes as your versions helps in finding out, okay, is that an image that was created 2 years ago or 2 days ago? And yeah, that definitely should help. Exegete also says there's a built-in Docker scan command in Docker Desktop that could help with identifying vulnerabilities as well. And then you already are working on your own workstation. ODMN says, I have found this for patching the images, so I'll try Monday and implement it in our GitLab to auto-patch and upload the patched images in our registry. Copacetic. I've heard of Copacetic, and it might be a good approach. However, I would advise against simply using it on a fire and forget basis, as what you just posted sounds like. Simply letting a tool run over your containers, throwing up some CVEs, and then letting another tool run over it. Apparently resolving those CVEs is a very superficial approach to container security. I would advise for putting a little bit more manual effort in there and making sure that your tool set, which is definitely helpful, actually does the right thing and doesn't leave you vulnerable without you knowing it. For example, says needing to upgrade dependencies is just the cost of doing business. Of course, I mean, IT simply is fast-paced, and there's new features every day and new vulnerabilities every day. Those just come hand in hand. And so having a process in place that lets you identify vulnerabilities is great. So it's a great idea to using something like Trivy. Using another tool like Copacetic to get rid of the vulnerabilities is definitely also a good idea. I would just say, myself, I would want still some human element in there to actually make sure that we are not going on wild goose chases, and B, actually are getting rid of the more serious vulnerabilities. I guess what I'm saying in such a roundabout way is, again, trust but verify. But yeah, since I answered a previous question with, yeah, do use your own server, but also do use containers. This supply chain security aspect of using containers is definitely something that everyone using containers should take into account. So really good follow-up question actually on Element. All right, if you have any last questions, put them on the board, because otherwise I'll wrap things up. I have to make a few phone calls while people are still reachable. It's 3 p.m. Friday afternoon for me. So if I want to make a blood test appointment, I should be quick. All right, folks. I guess that's it for today. And you know what? I think we are going to raid White Panther. Say hello to Salma from me. And thanks for dropping by during my office hour. Thanks for asking questions. Thanks for your patience with my answers. And for contributing additional answers. I will be back next week. And if you want to get notified, follow the channel. Also join the server room, and until next time, take care.